I've talked about techno-decentralism before, and that is the idea of using technological means to decentralise society economically and politically over a gradual span of time. But it's worth considering the unfortunately more likely scenario, rather than what is ultimately the hoped for but lower odds subversion of it. So it's worth discussing techno-centralism, which is the notion that the existing technological infrastructure is taking us in a centralising direction. Some technologies can be cast as decentralising technologies, such as 3D printers and open source artificial intelligence, and others as centralising technologies, such as social media, the proposed Internet of Things, and large-scale uses of artificial intelligence. Most technologies can be pushed in one direction or another. Consider that drones and personal robotics are decentralisable, but due to networks could be centrally controlled and proprietary in nature. Productive technologies like 3D printers are very particularly decentralising by their very nature, but many broader concepts of technology such as cryptocurrency or the internet as a whole combine aspects that are decentralised and aspects that are centralised. Certain plans for alternative networks may be more or less decentralised. Websites that run on peer-to-peer technologies such as BitChute are a more decentralised alternative to the classic server-heavy form of website structure. So there are technologies that are particularly decentralising by their sheer nature, and then there are technological frameworks that can be utilised in either centralising or decentralising ways. It's only natural that the centralising aspect of technology is ahead of the decentralising aspect because of the advantage in economies of scale and government support. Tech tends to start in a more centralised proprietary form before it becomes available to the general public, but even when that point is reached, decentralising uses of the technology are prevented through political means such as intellectual property law in favour of megacorps, or direct regulations restricting their use in the case of government actions. So what is already naturally a struggle is made harder by the powers that be, and quite deliberately so, both to protect profits and political power. As the 21st century progresses, and the power of artificial intelligence grows, this is going to become politically significant, and quite possibly the main political issue of future society. Artificial intelligence cannot be put back in the box. Any nation that forgoes research into it will fall by the wayside on an economic and military level. Luddism as a response is dead on arrival, but there is a small movement of AI risk theorists who consider the potential dangers of AI, and in the future I'll do a dedicated video on exactly that. For now it suffices to say that there are indeed many risks involved, though many of them cannot be avoided as they concern the application of sheer power per se. There is, in the nearer term, a danger that elite groups will try to twist well-meaning concern over AI risk into a justification for monopolising power and keeping it from spreading when technology naturally trickles down over time. As society automates more and more, anyone without any automated means to project power will find themselves effectively outgunned. AI will first be used to control the results of elections through social media by tailoring the most convincing arguments to the right people. Later, when machines can start directly replacing human labour, such indirect methods will no longer be needed. The elite class can become more direct. A new rift in human history will open up. Consider for a minute the importance of the military and by extension the police, and the significance of the strong arm of defence and law in relation to government power. In a developed Western democracy, each administration agrees to abide by the rules and step down when their time comes. But as the Third World shows, if an administration decides in its corruption to refuse to step down, it is the military which has the deciding role. Therefore, even the worst examples of 20th century totalitarianism have been limited by the compliance of the military, which is linked to the populace. Atrocities on a colossal scale have already occurred, but even in those cases they were aimed at an external enemy, defined as outside the people. Even the Kim family of North Korea has to appease its troops, and so must maintain some barest level of human link, some kind of politics that relies on a notion of the people. Even if there are enemies to be rooted out, and even if genocides have been committed, the masses remain the common subject to appeal to and bargain with. But now, the potential for an entirely new level of totalitarianism is looming in the distance. In a society where the military is automated away to a small number of computer engineers, scientists and generals, the link with mass politics will be close to being severed. An unshakably loyal army with no link to the masses will render the masses politically redundant and expendable. For the first time in history, a regime can be conducted without regard to political interest. The pure will of the dictating class can be enacted, and the existence of the masses will become contingent on their whims, as their power and relevance will have been reduced to zero. People's fear of techno-terrorists ending the world with bootstrapping AI will be the very thing that allows this to pass. The danger lies on all sides. Over in America, progressives like to say that the right to bear arms laid out in the Constitution of the United States is out of date because the Founding Fathers couldn't have possibly have conceived of the mighty AR-15 assault rifle, and that therefore in a world that has moved beyond muskets, America must amend its constitution in the direction of greater gun control. By the same token, Thomas Jefferson could not have possibly have conceived of the idea of drones. I say that few alive today can conceive of a constitutional right to bear killer robots, and many are busy fruitlessly trying to get states to agree to restricting their own military power by restricting the usage of artificially intelligent drones. However, history is not convenient for those who want a permanently safe state of affairs. The potential of technology in individual hands has its dangers, but in a world where the state will increasingly be able to utilise technology to tear up any assumed social contract of its citizens, the right of today's Americans to bear an AR-15 will not be enough to prevent the obsolescence of the masses. Technology is power, and as it is developed, the ones who are able to control its use will be able to accelerate outside of any of the limitations they have laid down on the rest of us. That gap will grow, and any decentralising opportunities must be afforded, any artificial barriers torn down, if we don't want to see the gradual emergence of a purified absolutism unlike anything before seen. This will not be pretty. No paradigm shifts ever are. The Industrial Revolution and the fall of feudalism brought massive political upheaval, and the scale and consequences have only increased. As a techno-decentralist, I do not guarantee safety and stasis, but disruption and uncertainty. What I hope for with my more mainstream politics as a somewhat classical liberal is to allow that process to happen in the environment most conducive to peaceful operations, but I do not guarantee because I cannot guarantee it, because history cannot guarantee it. The growing power of technology means that the ability to create a dystopia grows with the ability to create a utopia. The line between heaven and hell is exceedingly thin, and grows narrower every day. Is this the great filter? However, the only possibility for any good future, no matter how remote, no matter how beset with civilization-ending possibilities on all sides, is for that power of technology to not fall into too small a group of hands. We cannot simply say the wrong hands, because our society is nowhere close to settling that question, and no society ever really has. There's a strong game theoretical necessity for decentralised uses of technology, but unfortunately right now we are on that highly centralised path I discussed earlier, the path that leads us to the obsolescence of politics, and the slow but inexorable rise of a system that denies any external competition. This may seem like a strong statement, but all the basic elements to create it are here today. The technology of social media, the nature of today's megacorporations, the inherent limitations of our democracy, and the increasingly totalitarian and genocidal ideologies popular among today's youth. Human society, as we understand it, may not have long left. If it has to be that way, then let's make the best of the breakup. Cheers.